before we talk about the weird reasons the thyroid can break down, let's talk about the nutritional importance, what you need to know in terms of how your thyroid works in the first place. So this diagram will help to a certain extent illustrate how nutrients play a role in thyroid hormone, not only the production of thyroid hormone, but also the regulation of thyroid hormone. So starting in the pituitary gland of the brain, where we make this hormone called TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone. Now, to produce TSH, that requires protein and zinc. It also requires magnesium. And so, again, these are nutrients that your body is not going to be able to make TSH adequately without. Once we make TSH, it travels to the thyroid gland itself, and it interacts with the thyroid gland and stimulates it to make the inactive form of thyroid hormone called T4. Again, it's inactive. It has to be activated. Now, to make T4, that requires iodine. And as a matter of fact, the iodine represents this 4 in T4. There are 4 molecules of iodine in T4. The T is tyrosine, which is an amino acid, comes from eating protein. And so think of your thyroid hormone as a racing car where the tyrosine forms the car's frame, and then the 4 molecules of iodine form the tires. Now, in order to make T4, we need iodine and tyrosine, but we also need other nutrients. We need nutrients like inositol, we need vitamin B2, we need vitamin C. So these nutrients are all very important for the biochemistry, for that underlying building of T4 as thyroid hormone. Once we do that, this thyroid hormone will hit your bloodstream and it will travel to the liver. And it's the liver where we make the active version of thyroid hormone. That is called T3. So again, we have to activate thyroid hormone into T3. Now, to do that in the liver requires selenium, which is a mineral, but also requires iron. And so what oftentimes will happen, this is especially true of menstruating females, is they'll lose iron every month because of the cycle, and they'll be more prone to this transient iron deficiency, and these fluctuations can affect your ability to convert T4, inactive thyroid hormone, into active thyroid hormone. This process also requires selenium, and selenium is one of those nutrients because of the highly processed food diets that are consumed in most industrial countries. Selenium is a very, very common deficiency that we find. And so again, these 2 nutrients necessary for this conversion. Now, the liver is also necessary for this conversion, so the liver has to be healthy. And so what we oftentimes see happen, especially in the elderly, we see a situation called polypharmacy. Polypharmacy, just simply put, means you're on multiple medications at the same time. Maybe you're on a cholesterol medicine, a blood pressure medication. Maybe you're on a medication to regulate your blood sugar, et cetera, but more medications, if they're processed by the liver, can slow down the functionality of the liver. And so this polypharmacy can also sometimes contribute to poor conversion of T4 to T3. So it's important to remember that as well, because again, if you're on multiple medications, it's going to hinder this potential. Now, once you get T3 is going to travel through the bloodstream, and it's going to travel to the different cells. The job of T3 is to get inside the cell and to get into what's called a nuclear receptor. So in the surface of your cell nucleus, we'll call that here your cell nucleus, there are these receptors that stick off. They're called nuclear receptors. One of the most predominant types of receptors here is called a retinoic acid receptor, or RA. And this is how T3 communicates to the DNA. And so what has to happen is that T3 has to bind to that receptor and stimulate the upregulation of certain genes to elevate or to increase metabolic function. So in order for T3 to bind to that receptor, that requires vitamin A. It also requires vitamin D because those receptors also, important component of those receptors is also vitamin D. So you need those nutrients for healthy thyroid hormone function to work as well. Now, this cell membrane itself, on the outside and on the inside, the nuclear membrane, those require, in order for them to maintain their healthy fluidity. Think of that experiment you did probably in grade school where you poured a little bit of water into a cup and then you poured some oil into the same cup, and you saw that the water and the oil separated from each other. And the oil, if it was like an olive oil, it was permeable. If you stuck a pen through the oil, it would go through the pen. Now imagine that same experiment where instead of using something like olive oil, you're using coconut oil or you're using Crisco, that old saturated fat that grandmas used to cook with, right? And so we don't want our cell membranes to be like Crisco or coconut oil. We want them to be permeable and flexible at the same time. And this permeability in the membrane requires omega-3 fatty acids. They also regulate the inflammation or the inflammation potential of the cell itself. So these omega-3 fatty acids are very important for the permeability of the membrane so that the T3 hormone can get into the cell and then attach and then get through the nuclear membrane to the DNA itself. So again, one more nutrient in the line of important nutrients that you want to understand are critical for the healthy functioning and healthy communication of your thyroid hormone to your cells to improve your metabolism. Now, remember, metabolism is not weight loss. A lot of people misconstrue the term metabolism with weight loss, meaning what is metabolism? Let's sum it up. It's two factors. You have what are called catabolic and you have what are called anabolic reactions. When you add catabolic and anabolic reactions together, that equals metabolism. So catabolic reactions are reactions that break tissue down. So when you have an old cell and it needs to be broken down and replaced, we break it down first. That's a catabolic reaction. We also then want to replace that cell and make a new cell. And so anabolic reactions are growth reactions, are building reactions. And so metabolism is a balance between the catabolic and metabolic function of the body. And they're both regulated by your thyroid hormone. And that's what makes this hormone so important. Because if you get an imbalance between catabolic and anabolic, you can have what's called a repair deficit, where your body breaks down faster than it can repair and heal itself. And then lots of things start to break down. So now you're starting to understand the importance of thyroid hormone. Let's talk about some of the symptoms also of a low thyroid. Now, this is not an all-inclusive list, but these are some of the more common things that can occur to folks that develop low thyroid. So the first one is just general low energy or fatigue. Again, we're talking about metabolism, and metabolism is, again, the reactions, the chemical reactions, including those that produce energy. We also see a lot of hair loss in folks that have low thyroid function, as well as dry skin and low libido, constipation, joint pain, because again, what I said earlier, your body is breaking tissue down faster than it's rebuilding. So joint pain is one of the side effects of that. Muscle stiffness and tightness, weight gain, but also weight loss. This is one of those where it could go either direction. Most people associate, most doctors associate hypothyroidism with weight gain, but a lot of women actually can't put weight on. Again, their metabolisms are slowing down, so their anabolic function, their building reactions aren't working as well, and so they can't put weight on. So it's not always about weight gain. And then gut dysfunction as well, gas, bloating, intestinal discomfort. These two kind of go together with one another.